And two ceremonies that I'm talking about with Katie. One of them is a medicine wheel ceremony in which we call in the energies of the 7 directions. And the second one we talk about, that was the one that we did standing outside in the oak grove by the main healing yurt. And then we moved into the yurt for the second ceremony, where Katie made a thing called a despacho, which I haven't come across before. She talks about it a little bit. One of the phrases I think that might be unfamiliar to people is that she talks about blowing in ideas. And what she'd done was she'd brought in a lot of things from nature, which are described to a certain extent in the interview. And the idea was that I think there were sort of 14, 15, maybe 16 people at this ceremony, was that we each took parts of this stuff at various parts of the ceremony, and what we were bringing to mind were our hopes and aspirations for the festival, for the healing area, and for the people who were coming there. There was a lot of loving kindness in it, and what you do is you you think about these things, hold them in your mind, and then blow them into the various items that are being used to make the despacho. So that's what she means when she's talking about blowing in. Sacred space is the space that we were in anyway, and it's simply a matter of using ceremony and attention and well-chosen words to ensure that that's the way it stays for the duration of our time there. So this first interview is with Katie. There's a little lad's voice that pops up every now and then in this. I haven't had time to edit all of these things the way I might have liked to, but at the same time, I think that whatever occurs is supposed to be part of it. And unfortunately, whilst he got my name out of me, I didn't get his name out of him. Isn't that brilliant? What a smart and wily wee lad he is. But you can hear him in the background. And another background noise that occurs during this is, at this particular festival, there was a lot more activity for children. The children last year, I think, found it a bit of a trial, partly because of the weather and partly because there wasn't anything particularly aimed at them. This time we did have a children's area. They had their own cafe, which apparently had beans on toast for sale in it, and nobody told me that, else I would have gone there and visited it myself. But another thing that was done, which works really well for children at these events, is the idea was put forward that we should have a bit of a procession, and that for the procession there would be some songs learnt and some drumming learnt, and there'd be costumes made and the like. And if you'd like to just revisit the slideshow for a minute, the slide that's labelled slide 5 has the words Mary Lloyd on it. It's a pretty vague picture because I took it at night and haven't mastered the flash, which I can see is on the camera, but I haven't managed to work out how it works. My somewhat stubby fingers are finding it a bit hard to manipulate. What it is it's a shroud. It's a white shroud with ribbons and the like on it, and on top of, and it's got a stick up inside the shroud. And on top of it is a horse's head. It's the skeleton of a horse's head, and it's possible to move the jaw on that. Apparently this is an ancient Welsh pastime isn't the word, but it's one of those things that happens every year. It normally happens at New Year properly, but here they decided to do it at the festival. And the idea is that this character goes round and knocks on the doors of all the houses in a village, and the main job, and what it's doing at the start of the day, is it's speaking poetry. And the main job of the householder, of the people in the dwelling, is to make sure that this skeletal horse figure does not get into the house. And once the Mary Lloyd is convinced to turn from the house door, it moves on to the next house and it starts hassling them, and the people from the first house follow it. And the idea is that by the end of the day, everybody in the village is following this thing, and I'm sure there will be the usual bacchanalia and drinking and partying at the end. And during as well, by the sound of it, because by the end of the day, this horse figure is getting very ribald, and it tells a lot of smutty and dirty jokes, and it becomes more and more filthy in its habits. And I can't help feeling that all of that would be a really great way of getting a village to get out and kind of talk to itself and meet all the people around the place. And there's something really lovely and ancient about the whole thing. The reason why it's relevant to this particular interview is because this procession, as it turns out, happens whilst Katie and I are talking. We're sitting in the healing area, so you'll probably be able to hear in the background the stream running by us. You'll certainly be able to hear some of the birds singing in the trees. They're not too noisy at that time of the day. But also the Mary Lloyd comes down with all the children and the drums and the singing, and it moves right past us and then down the stream where it goes and visits the showers, which we've got some pictures of later on, and our sauna. We had a sort of fire-powered steam sauna built over the river, which we'll also be looking at. And then the Mary Lloyd came all the way back from there over a bridge, which was to our right, and ended up behind us, actually in the centre of the healing area. It doesn't at any point actually drown out the speaking, though it can make it a little harder to concentrate, but because it's always on the move, none of it lasts too long. So here we go. Here's half an hour or so of me having a chat with Katie about ceremony, about the 7 directions, and about the despacho. Her training, I think, is, I believe, from Peru. We had several really beautiful shaman-type ladies there who seem to have a really gentle way with words and a really gentle way with people and with the world in which they find themselves. So here she is. Half an hour at last. There's half an hour of recorded interview that I've managed to get together, and hopefully this is the start of another load of shows where I'll find many more people to talk to. So here you go, folks. I'll come and join you in the chat box whilst this is happening. I'll have a bit more music and a bit of comment afterwards. There's plenty of show tonight. I think, by way of celebrating these 2 years of fun and frolic with the technology at first TNS and now MSI, by trying to go all the way through from my 6 o'clock opening to midnight, because I know that Jack's taking a bit of a break at the moment, Freeman Jack. And probably from next week, it seems that I'll be having a go at the 9 till midnight slot. So we'll no longer have to get this really early crack on as I come in from the gardens. I should hopefully be pretty relaxed and not asleep by 9 o'clock at night. But tonight we're going to try and do the whole thing. Thanks, of course, to all of you for being there. Here's me and Kate.
So you got invited back this year because, you know.
Yeah, well, they're just ideal really for this kind of show. So I'll just put that like that. And if I put that over the top of it, that should keep the wind off it, and I'm pretty sure that'll be able to hear us, and it'll separate us into left and right quite nicely. So I'm sitting. It is going to be one.
Yeah, that's basically what it is.
Yeah. Do ya?
Is it not that?
Yeah. I don't know your name. There you go. So I'm sitting in the healing area with Kate, who's been working really hard out in the woods with people. If you prefer Kate or Katie?
I usually get called Katie, but some people call me Kate, and that's down.
Okay, well I will do that, I guess.
Yeah, Katie creuynni, that's right.
And first time I met you, you were doing the facilitating the opening ceremonies for the healing area, and I've been interested in ceremony for a long time. Why do you think it's important for us to do that sort of thing at the beginning?
It's useful just to hold the sacred space, just to hold us in a space where we can work.
Yeah.
Connecting with the energies around us, the elemental energies, and and giving us focus as well, and intention, and bringing us together. And it does feel, especially with the healing fields, to be held in that sacred space just helps hold us as we work.
Yeah.
Especially working with healing therapies. We're working with a lot of people coming in with issues and situations. So to be held and be able to hold people as they release their issues and situations is really useful. And it's nice to do that over festivals. I've done it over whole festivals as well. And it can increase synchronicity, and it can increase the feeling of sacred time.
Yeah. And it's, I presume, a way of sort of attuning, because we're made of the elements that we're sitting amongst, so it's a way of attuning us and our energy fields to the energy that we're working with and in.
Yeah, exactly. It's inviting energies in, as represented by serpent, jaguar, eagle, and hummingbird, and inviting in the lineage. And what these represent, we don't take them literally, is the serpent represents the binding principle and the releasing of our past, the way the serpent shed their skin. Jaguar represents the emotions and the mind, and also giving back to the earth that which no longer serves us. It's inviting in these energies to hold us. Some traditions invite in earth, air, water, wind to represent these energies.
Yeah.
They say science invites in electromagnetism, strong nuclear force, weak nuclear force, receptive principle, dynamic principle.
So those are like modern words for the spirits of place that were experienced by our ancestors, who had different words for them.
Yes,
effectively.
yeah, these energies, just a way to describe these energies, and it's bringing them in, but exactly like you said, it's they're in us as well, and it's feeling that connection.
Yeah.
It's the merging between the nature, these energies, and the energies that we have like that in ourselves as well. I think you described it well.
Yeah, perhaps we could talk a little bit about the directions, because the ceremony that you did to open the area started off with greetings to the directions, didn't it? Because that's a good way of talking about these different energies and influences so that people can remember them, perhaps.
It is.
So could you talk us through just a bit about each of the directions you did?
Okay, so
We started with the south, didn't we?
The south, yeah. We start with the south, and when we do our medicine wheel training, our journey of the four winds, that's a basic map of which an initiate or a trainee goes through the path and learns their journey, learns their craft, and the actual calling in the directions actually relates to that as well. It relates to that journey. So we start off in the south. And in the south class, the training we find our stories and we shed our stories. And it is like the serpent can shed a skin. The serpent doesn't hold on to the skin all the time, it sheds it. So it keeps shedding the past.
Yeah.
And the more you shed the past, the more you can bring in what you do choose.
So the serpent's associated with the south and the beginning of the journey.
Yeah, and the shed, and we ask the serpent, can you hold your sacred space? And they call it the binding principle, because the serpent binds everything together and then pulls it off, releases it. The skin comes off in one piece. So we're asking the serpent, can we continue to shed our stories the way you shed your skin so sweetly? So rather than holding on to the stories, being able to just keep releasing them, because we don't need to hold on to them.
It's an interesting point, that, isn't it? Because a lot of people do hold on to their stories. They have an experience which might be to their disadvantage or for their greater learning, and then instead of letting it go and letting it flow behind them, they just tell the story again and again and again, so embedding it not only in their own self but in the selves of others around them.
Yeah.
So this is what we're talking about here, as a principle that works on experiencing something, then moving on and not impressing it on the lives of loads of others.
Exactly, because the more you embed it, the more you're attracting it, so you keep getting the same story coming and complaining that the same thing keeps happening. But we can release those stories. We can even, these stories might have given us valuable gifts, and if so, that's great. Get the gift.
Yeah.
Release the stories.
Yeah.
You can keep the gift and release the stories.
I know the Mayan cycles work like that as well, from initiation at 1 up to the number 11, which is liberation and release. And it is to do with all the stuff that you take on board, all the positive stuff that's happened in the 9 or 10 days leading up to it, and then let go of the stuff you don't need, which is followed by kind of a day of cooperation and transmission before you go back to the beginning of another cycle.
It's useful with energy in general, So imagine if that river over there, if that decided to dam up and just hold this water in this one space, wouldn't let any of it through, it would just go stagnant, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
So the more we can release, the more the water can flow, the more the energy can keep flowing, and the more you let go, the more energy comes in. Just like that stream, the more it's letting go of water, the more energy.
It's like space, isn't it, as well? If you kind of keep space clear, there's room to put more important stuff when it arrives.
Yeah. And we don't need to hold on to these things. They're there in the past. If we really want to access them, we can you know, access, like, you know, our past if we really want to in the history books or whatever. But you know, we don't need to hold on to it. We can, you know, somewhere deep in our memories, if we really want to find them, we can find them. But we don't need to. Hold on. We can just keep releasing.
And so after the south, we went to the west.
Yeah, the place of the jaguar, and jaguar's the symbol of the west because he emerges in the jungle, the forest, and helps mulch and McCree and give back to the earth, which no longer serves us. So it's just like we give food compost back to the earth, and the earth just creates beautiful trees and plants with it. It's that kind of like giving back to the earth and mulching it, bringing it back into earth, and just letting it go. It's also often the medicine wheel journey as well as the releasing of ancestral and karmic ties. It's not only, so in the south we've released stories, which no longer serve us, but we're also releasing our parents' stories that have been passed down to us, our parents' stories that have been passed down to us. And also, if past lives exist, which experience it shows us something, there seems to be something in it. Experiences from previous lives we've led, whether that's in our DNA or whether it's in our energy field, as it seems to be, that can affect now as well. So it's also tracking back through time through that and clearing those so they're not affecting us, and working with the ancestors and clearing their effects on us.
It is interesting that as well, isn't it? Because I know it's said in this culture, not so much in the shamanic cultures, but in this culture it's said that we're actually living the lives of our grandparents, because it's the kind of moral code from 2 generations ago that's being kind of passed down the line, and that because of the nature of the culture, nobody gets any teaching or any help in the raising and the having of children. And so those patterns are kind of imprinted on nearly all of us. And again, this kind of ceremony can help us to at least start thinking about moving from that into the world we're living in, rather than, and you think about them, our grandparents and parents went through the First World War and the Second World War, and we haven't had conscription. None of our young men have been forced to go and fight and things. So there is a new world for us to be into.
Yeah, and you can understand. Of course, in the training you go into more depth with it, and the opening sacred space is just, asking for us to, it said begin to be able to do that, and to be able to do that. And there's various techniques to working with the ancestors, and you see almost it was personified, and you can see why they want to affect future generations. If, they've got their reason why they've passed down these patterns to us. But again, it's more beneficial for us to release. Again, it's like thank you for the gifts that you've given us, but release our hold now. We want to make a new. It's time for us to make a new.
Yeah, keep hold of the core and again release the unnecessary stuff.
Or just hear the gifts, what their gifts are, and then then they can let go. And it's important for us to do so if we can, because it affects our children. It can affect our children's and children's children. Or so I've experienced, and so I've been seeing. When working with the work.
And then comes the north.
It is. Different place we call him the hummingbird. They used to call him the dragon as well, or rather in place, but for some reason it's evolved into hummingbird. But both work because they're both creatures. Well, the dragon works because it's a place of the mythic, and hummingbird works because it's also the place of the journeyer, and how the hummingbird just trusts in the calling. It travels hundreds of miles, not worrying where it's going to taste, where it's going to get its food from. It just trusts in its journey. It hears its calling, just goes. It goes on its adventure and trusts that there'll be food along the way, and it finds it. Well, was it from North to South America it travels? It's really vast distances for this little tiny bird. So hummingbirds represents what's to teach us is about hearing our calling, and sensing our adventure and going on our adventure with that trust and tasting the sweet nectar that is in our lives. That's what we ask. Can we do that? And And it also sometimes reminds me of remembering not to take life too seriously sometimes, that it is, you know, it is something to enjoy, and it is like a grand adventure, and it's seeing like our everyday stories as the mythic story, the fairy tale, the hero's journey, these wonderful archetypical journeys that we go on, and it's quite useful to see it from that perspective, and it can just change from being bogged down into a story like, oh, poor me. It's like, oh, actually, this is quite a journey of transformational learning. Yeah. So it's quite useful.
Because in that kind of context, I mean, people tend to assume that we only get support by events and people supporting us, but actually we get at least half our support through challenge and through people who...
Yeah, it can be, yeah. I prefer to learn with ease and grace, as they call it.
Yes, yeah.
But if something is challenging, there often is, if not, at least often.
I know that some of the what appeared in my life to be the biggest betrayals, and they've been quite minor really, but what they were at the time, they looked really major. They looked like really major betrayals, and very quickly afterwards, it became apparent that had that not occurred, there was a whole load of opportunities I wouldn't have been able to take, and it did turn out to be absolute. All three of them turned out to be absolutely what needed to happen, and it also, the hummingbird story reminds me of Joseph Campbell's advice to his students. He's a sort of master of myth, who wrote Hero with 1,000 Faces, and he said that he basically gives the same advice when asked, which is follow your bliss. Because doors will open to you that would not open otherwise, and he said in fact doors will open for you that just wouldn't be there for other people.
Yeah, exactly, and I think Homebird is a place of the mythic, isn't it? To do with cymru
and once you start realising it, synchronicity does reveal a bit more of itself, doesn't it? If you start following that path with it, sincerity and confidence and excitement. Yeah,
follow your bliss. I wish I'd learned that many years ago. I could have done with learning that many years ago.
Yeah.
But it's lovely to discover it now. You know, at least I've discovered it now. I might have gone my whole life without discovering that. To follow my heart. And
Again, I think the Maya have a line on that because they see things happening in 13-year cycles. So there's a major change at 13, which we recognise because you become what's now called a teenager. At 26, sort of close to 30. There's another one at 39. Life begins at 40, and then there's one at 52. When you've completed your physical development then, and you begin 52 years of spiritual development. And I know many people now, and I'm 52 this year, and especially here, I've really felt the difference, of all of those years' experience and all the different places I've been to. And I always like to see the bearded old gits at the festival sitting around chatting, and now I am one. It's been brilliant to talk to all these people, but you have to have the 52 years,
I think.
Some people may be just born with it, but the thing is that once you've lived 52 years, you've lived through what the Maya call a bundle of years. So you live through the whole interrelation of their 260-day sacred calendar has intermeshed completely with the 365-day calendar. It takes 52 years to live through all those possibilities. So...
Yeah, it's interesting. I have to experiment and let you know. see what the differences are. But then again, people are experiencing spiritual development at so many different ages. Well, I suppose children are naturally born with it in a way, but what I'm enjoying is so much wisdom coming. Might have been passed down to generations, but I'm finding more and more people coming to it through themselves as well.
Yes, just finding it rising within.
And if it is likely to be true, then I guess people are going to find it themselves, and I'm loving that. And in the north is where we normally also do invite in our ancestors of the healing lineage to come and help hold the sacred space as well, and we thank them for sharing the wisdom that they've passed down to us.
So is the north associated with the ancestors in your journey?
It is generally, It is, the place of the north where they go. It's also the place of the mountains, the Apus, and they say when we leave the wisdom is stored in the mountains.
In the bones of the earth.
And in our journey, when we come around the medicine wheel, the north is starting to step into our journey, and also learning to connect with nature and learning from nature and ourselves, sourcing from the wisdom within. and from nature at a very deep level. So after releasing the past stories, releasing these karmic ancestral ties, it's starting to come and learning, lots of other people's experiences and processes. It's starting to come into your own and just learning from nature itself. And then in the north, in the medicine wheel, that's often when we start doing what's called soul retrieval. I kind of call it life essence retrieval, really, rather than soul retrieval, because we always have our souls.
Yeah.
Trace Chapman, all that we have is our soul.
Yeah.
But it's like some of our life essence, part of the soul, has sort of fled almost into hiding. So we can journey into the subconscious, the uneven, the inner depths, and retrieve these little places, this little life essence, this little part of us that's been held in grace. It might have fled due to trauma, it might, experience, and just retrieving it and just bringing it back and more as part of your energy field, more conscious part of your energy field.
It's a major part of the traditional shaman's job, isn't it? The retrieving of bits of people that have been left where the person isn't.
Yeah. It's there, but it's not. It's like deep, very deep in there.
Yeah. And that. So we must have got our way around to the east.
Yeah, the east. East. That's the place of the eagle, the energetic. Yeah. That's where we can really be aware of, how everything is energy. It's where we start to come into the feeling. How, you can hear people saying it, how we're source manifesting as ourselves, how we are in ourselves as source, but it's the feeling it, the being with it, that being with the energetic, how everything's energy, how this grass is just made up of lots of atoms, which is just energy.
Yeah.
When I say just, energy is awesome, but so it's just viewing the world from the energetic. It's also seeing the world from the biggest perspective in the calling the directions and in the medicine wheel. So we do seeing the world from bigger perspectives. And again, if you rise above your situation to see it from the bigger picture, your whole journey looks different.
And the eagle, of course, can see the whole picture from the zenith up there, but it can see all the detail too.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's just a really valuable way of shifting things and holding things. And again, you can get caught up down here in it, but when you just step outside, you just suddenly see the bigger picture. It just makes more sense. And again, you can see your journey more clearly, and you can also see little detail. You can see what the little detail means to you. And we ask the eagle, can we share your gift of flight, of sight, of seeing this world in new perspectives, to be able to fly.
Brilliant.
And also we say, maybe fly wing to wing with you, and great spirit, great creator, to the places we now dare to dream of. So it's also about actually achieving, your journey, achieving your goals, and something that maybe you might think, that's not possible. I can't live that way. That's not possible. It's like, actually, I do dare to dream that. That is possible. And even what I found when I did the directions, I went round to the east. Not only did I find that it was not only possible, the things that I would have chosen if I had an ideal world, some of the bits of the ideal world, that other people were already living that way and have been doing so for 35 years or more. It's like, what? How did I not find out about it before? So it's really the place of transformation and self-transcendence sometimes, and of beginning to step from the healing journey to the envisionary journey, starting to realise that more is possible, and if all is potentially possible, what are we choosing to create? What do we want to participate in? So the equals through.
Yeah. Are they associated with the elements as well, those 4 directions?
I expect so, although I haven't got round to translating them yet. You know what I mean? I think I think they'll translate, but I haven't sat down and gone, right, okay, that will, serpent, earth makes sense to me. And I could probably just guess now.
Yeah.
I've often thought, I'm going to do that one day, and I haven't sat down and meditated.
And we do 3 more directions as well, don't we?
Yeah.
Earth first, is it down?
Yeah, the receptive principle.
Yeah.
That holds us, and it just holds us with that unconditional love. You know, it just holds, and just it gives us abundance, and it's just asking the earth, you know, may you help hold us in sacred space, this wonderful, holding space that holds us each day. And also giving thanks for the holding. Yeah. And it's our connecting to the earth. Yeah, it's also, like you said, it's the connecting with the earth in us and our connection with the earth. It's a beautiful place to be held, isn't it? Because we're surrounded by oak trees, and the healing area is kind of held in the kind of bow of a stream. It is.
All this background stuff will be audible, which would be great. All the birds and the singing and the stream. So they can actually hear all of that going on. And then we do the sky.
Yeah, we do the sky, the cosmos, the universe, the sky that also holds us. It holds us in the cosmic order of all things. You know, the earth holds us on the earth, and then above the sky, the universe, the sun holds us in its orbit. Yeah. And so it's connecting with that. It's also the dynamic principle, the moving, the energy, and it's also our connection as well to the stars. And I say like you're our brothers, sisters, ancestors of the stars, because to quote Moby, we are made of stars. The stardust. And to remember, with our histories in the earth, our bodies have come from the earth. But also our bodies and the earth have also come from the stars and the universe, and it's that connection that...
Because we're basically made of carbon and oxygen and nitrogen and only a few other things in lots of traces, but all of those basic elements are made in first generation stars and ride towards us apparently on the edge of plasma from the sun. These simple elements are created on the edge of plasma and arrive on the earth from the sun. And I love that idea of the mind of light beyond the sun, that are similar energies coming to the sun from the heart of the galaxy.
It is, isn't it? Yeah. It's so interlinked, and we have that connection. And it's a reminder of that connection, isn't it? Yeah. And we ask that cloak of protection as well, and share with that in wisdom of infinities, and
we are the Big Bang happening. We're not dependent on it. We are it.
I guess so, yeah. It's amazing that we kept our history, like we talk about the physical history now, has come from that Big Bang. Like physically, in a way, we were, around, that's a long time.
Yeah, and we're just the latest part of a process. Riding the Big Bang, which takes us to the last direction, which is the heart, isn't it?
I put my hand to the heart.
Yeah, inside.
Well, it's connecting to the divine, the creator, creuynni, what some people call God, so there's loads of names, like I hear Ian say, you are known by so many names. Whatever name you call that life energy, that creating energy, the one that created even the Big Bang, perhaps. Yeah. The one that feeds us, the ones that connect to us, and possibly the ones that are us. If experience serves. So it's connected. It's inviting in that creator, that source, spirit to hold us in sacred space, and of course, holds us anyway. I'm finding, but to hold us in that sacred space and connecting with that source, that creative energy.
Can we just, in closing, talk a little bit about the ceremony that we did to dedicate the healing yurt, the little package that you made?
The despacho.
Yeah, just a little description of what the despacho is, and just a couple of minutes, chap, and then we can go and get something to eat and drink. But, I can listen to many things at once. That's part of the interviewing thing. It is apparently to be able to. Nope. There you go. Must be my intuition.
I think so.
We've only got just a couple more minutes or so, and then we can move on.
Yeah. Okay. So despacho. In Peru, they use despachos quite a lot apparently, for many things, and there's many different types of despachos. And it's a way of bringing the South into creuynni with nature, with our lives around us. It could be a way of giving thanks for what's brought us together, thanks for the earth, thanks for all the gifts that we receive in living this life. And it can also be setting intention of what we want to bring in. It's working at the energetic, at the solar mythic level, it's working at the mind, and it's working at the physical together. So bringing all of those in creuynni. Because at the energetic, we're blowing in what certain physical things mean to us. So I'm just trying to remember what people blew in, what meant what.
I remember somebody, there was a dog rose, wasn't there? And so somebody said that the rose is a symbol of love, and I remember that the dog is kind of loyalty and faith, good faith from the beginning of time to the end of time.
So it's taking something like that, and you can take the traditional view of what it means, or you can just what it means to you at that moment, and just blowing that in and bring it in. So if you want to bring in acceptance, if you want to bring in love, I'll give thanks for love, you blow that in. So that's energetically blowing that energy in, and then you physically putting it in this a piece of paper, which eventually get wrapped up like a parcel, like a gift. And yeah, so you do that, and there's lots of different kinds. The one that I did was working with the different elements, so working with the earth, and we were giving thanks and for the earth and what we wanted to bring in for the festival that was connected with the earth, maybe being held by the earth, and giving thanks for the abundance the earth gives us. And then we did a layer of water, and there was wishes to be free flowing like water is, and a thanks for the water that that gives us so much life. And then we did the fire and the warmth of the sun, thanks, and also from the warmth of my heart they wanted to bring in, and there's different objects, different leaves or flowers, all natural berries and fruits. But there are prescriptions. This means this, that's meant that. But the way I like to work, I like to say, what does this mean to you, and blow that in, and the things that people come up with and say, it's like, yes, I agree with that, and yes, I'd like to bring that in too. And I think that's lovely the way they share that. So we had fire, and then we had air. That's right. So we had air and brought in things through the air, and the appreciation of the air we breathe, and just clean air, and
inspiration.
Yeah, and it's amazing these things that are blown in. They can be very practical and down to earth, and then they can be completely spiritual. These wonderful things that are brought in, and then also of creative spirits, that as well. That was blown in, that connection to the divine, and the wish to bring that, and some were connected, like the wish to be connected with the divine or creator, whatever name you want to give, but also the connection with the earth, and to have that balance. And again with despachos, you can get given specific lists of what to put in, but I quickly learned early on that it's good to work. I find it, for me, you can go to Peru and buy like despacho kits, and that's great if you like to do that. But I like to work with what's around me, go with what's natural, and have a look and gather. I brought some sage from home, and I did actually use the traditional what that means, wisdom, when I blew it in. But then other people found other things to represent it. But yeah, I like working with what's around me and finding what I feel would be good.
It did make a very beautiful little layout before we folded it up with because we had the dog rose leaves, and we had some sticks, and we had some old man's beard type light feathery seed, and there was golden marigolds, buttercups I think they were in there, and some berries, presumably from the ivy. I don't know where they came from.
They were blueberries from what I brought with me.
Oh, they were imported, right? I was wondering. Yeah. I thought you were, maybe you were extremely canny wild food.
Yeah.
Well, that's been really nice, that has, because I think we've probably had our half hour.
Yeah.
And that's a really great chat. Thank you very much. I'm glad we got it together. And like I say, I really enjoyed the ceremonies. I really did. I thought they were beautiful. And, part of what's really been, I can only describe this whole weekend as a genuinely sublime experience. It's been a real pleasure. It has. Right, so hopefully we'll meet again.
I hope so. I want to ask you more questions.
Perhaps we swap email addresses before we part, because then we can, it'd be great.
Yeah.
We'll make sure we see each other again. And
yeah, that'd be great, because I've got lots to ask you.
This is Media Streaming International Radio.
In the thick golden gloom of autumn, the dying light of the day, while all your friends and your family, they stream past me as I headed to the grave where you lay. The thud of the tumbling rocks left me breathless, reminding me of your pain. And then I caught sight of a chalk hill blue, and it lifted your pain away. I don't know how to feel this. I'm not sure there's a right or a wrong, but all I know that the truth is, we come in, we get going, then we go. So when you're tired of life, let it lift you in the morning. Oh, let it linger at night. And when I watch that chalk hill blue, I
that's better. That was Kidnap Alice with Chalk Hill Blue from their new EP, a song about a funeral of a friend of theirs. And what a line. We come in, we get going, and then we're gone. A really beautiful tune. Unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to play the song that I really wanted to play off that EP because it's got a question mark in it, in the title, which means that it plays fine in Linux, but it won't play in Microsoft. So we'll have to save that one for next week as well. And before Kidnap Alice, a chat with Katie about ceremony with the sounds of children in the background and the sounds of a summer stream and bird song in the trees above us. And some very important points there. I've noticed whilst doing my own education, or whatever we want to call this word, just gathering my own experience about these subtle and energetic realms in which we undoubtedly live, and by spending my time with people from the West who've had shamanic training, and also spending my time with Mayan shamans who've done the full thing, you know, the standing in a river up to their nose for 24 hours to find out what it's like being river, and being buried naked in the desert to tell your story to the desert so that it goes away over the period of a day. That these messages, these ideas are all not only common across the world, apart from to our extraordinarily materialistic and mendacious society. They're not only applicable throughout the world and viewable, if you like, in these many different contexts. They also do work for us. If we become aware of them, they are really helpful ideas. As I keep saying, there's not a lot we can do about transforming other people. The only real gift we've got to give the world is our own transformation, and through that we will transform others. And it is these ideas, the ideas that Katie was talking about, that enable us to do that, because they're ideas that are recognisable within. When you can find yourself in a quiet or beautiful space and start thinking about these things, you do find that they are in some sense applicable. One of the things we talked about was the habit we have in this society. I think it's less so in the case in your shamanic and native societies, as we might call them, is that we embed experiences that we don't necessarily want in our own lives, and we do that by simply repeating the same disadvantage